Hi, I'm Al Lewis, and we're going to talk about reviving an 8-track car player from a British Leyland car. This one came out of my 1979 MGB, and it is a model BLM 105041, which I think is a rather common 8-track player for those cars.
It's usually a good idea, but it's not required, to clean the head and the capstan and maybe demagnetize the head. But not everyone has a head demagnetizer handy anymore. But I'll show you some photographs of the inside of this, and to take apart, to get into the head and the capstan area for cleaning and maybe some light lubrication. You remove these screws on the top part of the case on the side here, two on the top, and you very carefully slide this up. It's a very tight fit on the sides here from the printed circuit boards, but they're protected by a insulating piece of material. So you slide that off, and this is what you'll see. You can see that the head and the capstan are pointed out. The head is rather simple to clean. You use a Q-tip and alcohol, and you just wipe it and dry it, and then it's clean. And you do the same with the capstan. It's usually easier with the capstan to get to the bottom access port, which is down here, so you can spin the large flywheel to turn the capstan while you're cleaning it with the Q-tip. Optional is demagnetizing the head. It's normally a good idea to do, but not everyone has a head demagnetizer. I bought one in the early 70s from Radio Shack. It's called a head demagnetizer. It has a nice soft tip on it that you can slowly wipe in front of the head, and you just plug this in and you slowly bring it up to the head. You slowly move it around the head in a random fashion, and then you slowly pull it away, and that demagnetizes the head. Then to get to the belt area, now you can see that this access cover is for adjusting the head height and the azimuth, which you don't want to do unless you're having major problems with your player. Just leave all that stuff alone. Pull this plate off, and there's the belt. So the motor's here, you have a flywheel here, and this is where the capstan that drives your tape on its idler wheel. I had bought some new belts hoping that they're going to fit. This belt that's in here is not broken, and I actually did manage to get it to work by cleaning and slightly abrading the motor pulley here. This belt is most likely, it could be an original belt, I'm pretty sure it is, but it's in one piece and it's almost guaranteed to have been stretched, so it's kind of hard to determine what the original size was. And in the charts for buying new belts for these things, these are so obsolete that I don't think anyone's going to have a British Leyland player listed. At least I couldn't find one, so you're reduced to going by belt circumference. But it's not broken, so that makes it easy. I can get the thickness from it, which is 0.025 inches. It's about 0.15 to 0.18 inches wide, so it's a rather thin belt. It's thinner than a lot of belts for cassettes and phono players. And there's only a couple places that have belts that are that thin. While you have the belt off, you can clean the face of the flywheel for your capstan. Make sure that it rotates freely. And make sure your motor pulley, your drive pulley, rotates freely. And your drive pulley, it's a nylon pulley, and over the many years it could get slightly glazed on there. And what happens is when you put your tape in, it'll just spin without really driving the tape all that well, and you'll get this moaning and groaning sound from your tape for a while. And that's what happened with mine. So I cleaned it with Q-tip and alcohol, and then I also took a very narrow piece of Scotch-Brite, and I inserted a tape in there and turned it on so the motor would drive, and I pushed on the Scotch-Brite with a screwdriver lightly, and I lightly abraded the drive surface of the pulley, and that removed some of the glaze. And I cleaned it again with alcohol, and that fixed the problem of the startup. Now I can put the tape in and it just starts playing. You can also, if you have a belt and you don't have a replacement belt, you can clean both sides of this with alcohol. And then what I did was I flipped it inside out to basically get a new fresh rubber surface on there. I don't know if it really helps or not, but it doesn't hurt. So I flipped that over, I cleaned the motor pulley, I cleaned the capstan flywheel, and it actually plays. It plays pretty well. I don't hear any, for the wow and flutter, I don't hear any wow. I do hear a little bit of flutter, but it could be the tape. This is just an old tape that who knows what really, condition it's in from original. Plus it's Neil Young, and it's kind of hard to get a straight tone, singing tone from Neil Young, so it's hard to know really what's flutter and what's Neil Young. Now, I did buy new belts from StudioSoundElectronics.com. They're the only place I found that I could find this thickness and this width, and close to the lengths that I needed. I bought 2 lengths hoping that one of them was going to fit. So what I chose was the 11-inch inside circumference belt first. And I took it out, and it looks nice and fresh. Compared it to the old one, and it's a tad wider, but it's almost, considering the age of the old belt, it's probably started out as the same width. The old belt has, I had flipped the belt inside out, so this is the old inside surface of the old belt. It's shiny, it shows some, smooth wear on it, whereas the new belt, it shows no wear and it's not as smooth and shiny, which is good. Now for the length, in order to buy a belt, you take the old belt and use 2 pencils, and you measure what they call the flat length, I think is what they call it. This measures about 5 3/8. You would double that to get the circumference. So it'd be close to be a little bit under 11 inches. That's the original belt. Now this is probably stretched a little bit, but it's hard to tell. The belt actually looks reasonably good, and it plays reasonably good. The new belt measures almost exactly the same. It might be 30-second less, but it's hard to tell because it's a judgment call on how hard you straighten the belt out while measuring it. So this belt looks like it's the same size as the one I'm pulling off, but the surfaces are in new condition. So I'll swap the belt out. Since the old belt played fine, I'll just put a new belt in there. Spins nicely. I don't see any interference on the pulleys or anything. Now we'll play it and see what it sounds like. You notice I have this hookup for electrical, and this is an old computer power supply, probably from an early AT computer. And I can get 3 voltages from it, 12, 5, and 3.3. And I added fuses to it. And these are very handy for doing projects like this. So I just hook it together with alligator clips, making sure I'm not shorted out anywhere. Becomes a bundle of snakes here pretty quickly, but the 2 powers are the red and the black, positive and negative, and the brown is for the light, which is under here to illuminate. So I just tied that into power so the light's always on. I think that's supposed to operate from a power antenna or something like that. And then the speakers run off of this black connector here. and this connector has an output for front and rear speakers, but they just tied together the rear speakers to the front, so there's no front and rear balance control, even though the radio has it. There is left to right balance control. Well, front to rear fade control, I guess is what that is called. So I think we have everything not shorting out here. We turn the power supply on. I don't have an antenna, so I can't try out the AM/FM part, but you can hear the static. I just used some KLH 4-inch speakers, 4-inch three-way speakers that are pretty close to the same size and power draw as the door speakers that are in the car now. And this old tape.
Waitresses are crying in the rain.
See, I think you can pick up some flutter in the highs, in the guitars.
Oh, Mother Goose, she's on the skids.
You change the tracks.
I'll sell you 20 bells worth. But she can scream
And this outer dial is your tone, from treble to bass.
For making her feel so bad.
And the front and rear fader doesn't do anything except scratch a little bit.
It's hard to say the meaning of this song.
So that's it for a quick tune-up of the old 8-track car radios. Now I just got to get some more 8-tracks and put this back in the car and send myself back in time.